Well, back with another tier list video. I thought this could be an interesting idea. I am doing the tier list of NFL franchises in terms of success they've had in the Super Bowl era. That's the way I'm going to be viewing this because, to be honest, we get before the Super Bowl era. I'm not sure exactly every little detail, but I think I'm pretty well, at least educated on what happened Super Bowl era and on. So I figured this could be a fun idea for a tier list. S through D of success you've had. Let's just get into it. Starting off with the Tennessee Titans. Titans are an interesting one. So again, I'm not sure if we count the Oilers here as well. I guess not. I guess we're just counting the Tennessee Titans, who they're a franchise that haven't won a Super Bowl, have come close. They were a yard away, famously, from forcing overtime. People act like they would have won the Super Bowl had they gotten that play. Nope, they were down 7. Fisher said he would have kicked the extra point, so it would have been overtime. They've had moderate success, but to me, this is a C-tier franchise. They haven't been a disaster. They haven't been a mess or anything like that. But again, no Super Bowl, and they have had some bad years as well. I think C-tier feels right for me. We don't have the Miami Dolphins. This, their previous history has not been as good as obviously they've been in the past. I'm between S and A tier for me because, again, we're talking about full history. I think I will go with A tier. Let's save some room for S for the really dominant ones. But I think that A feels right. Again, undefeated season, that has to put them up there. The Jets, the Jets have to be, they do have a Super Bowl. That's fair. It was 1969, so I don't know how good we feel about that. I guess you get a Super Bowl, I'll put you in C. They're not quite in D tier just because of the Super Bowl, but really they've been kind of a mess outside of the Super Bowl. The Bengals have been to 3 Super Bowls, so again, I don't know. I think C tier feels right. They've been kind of consistently mediocre throughout the course of their tenure in the NFL. I think that that's reasonable to say. At the same time, they could end up jumping up some tiers with now the Joe Burrow era. Things are looking pretty good. The Browns, D tier. That's just, no Super Bowls, not really ever been close to a Super Bowl. Maybe in the Deshaun Watson era, it'll change. Right now, they're a D tier. The Jaguars are interesting as well. My gut says to put them in the D tier. They've made a couple conference championships, but that's it. And they've had some bad years. I think that's what I'm going to do. But again, a team that I like their future and could easily see them in 5 years, if I do this again, them getting bumped up a couple of tiers. The Lions, we have another D tier here because there's nothing lower. That's the reality with the Lions. Again, love Lions fan base. I like their future. It's interesting how a lot of the teams that are, all 3 teams in the D tier, there's things to be optimistic about. But for now, that's where I have to put them. The Vikings are so interesting. I believe they have the 4th best win percentage in football, but they don't have a Super Bowl. So I have to put them in A tier. I can't put them in S tier if you don't have a Super Bowl. But I think A tier feels appropriate for me. The Buccaneers are another fascinating one. They're the opposite of the Vikings, really. The Vikings are the team that always wins but never wins the big one. The Buccaneers have the lowest win percentage in the NFL. You could argue they should be D tier for that, but they have multiple Super Bowls. I think the multiple Super Bowls thing has to put them in at least B tier. 2 Super Bowl appearances, 2 wins, okay, yeah, they suck for, decades in between their Super Bowl wins, but you win Super Bowls, that's going to put you a little bit higher. 49ers, this is S tier, right? Consistently good throughout the course of the Super Bowl era. Obviously, 5 Super Bowl championships. S tier feels appropriate here. The Atlanta Falcons, another team that I think I'm going to put them in C tier. They have had some good years. I don't think they quite belong in D tier. And obviously, them, like the Titans, nearly had a Super Bowl. They came, so close in the famous 28-3 game. But, still, no Super Bowl, but not necessarily, again, they're known for collapsing. That's kind of their biggest issue, but there's things to like about the Atlanta Falcons. The Baltimore Ravens, been very consistent since they've been in the league. They've won multiple Super Bowls. I think A tier for me. This feels right. They've been consistently good since being a team, and they've won multiple Super Bowls, never lost a Super Bowl. I'll put them in A tier. Chicago Bears have a Super Bowl in '85, but just the one Super Bowl. Been around for a while. Again, if we're talking historic franchises going back pre-Super Bowl era, they're a lot higher. I guess the thing is, if they have a Super Bowl, I can't put them in C tier. That's what I said with the Jets. It's what else, or I can't put them in D tier. I mean, it's what I said with the Jets. Kind of what I have to go with the Bears. Cowboys are another S tier for me. Again, the dynasty back, in the Troy Aikman era. I think that puts them in S tier, and they've still been consistently solid. And people like to make the jokes about, no NFC championship appearances, which is a fair criticism. They've yet to really, they've struggled at getting over the hump, but they've still been a consistent playoff team. But the lack of championship, the lack of recent success is a knock. But I still have them in S tier. The Houston Texans, they got to be D tier, right? Again, a team that has, I don't believe they've ever been to, have they been to a conference championship? I don't believe so. No, I don't think they have. So that alone, they've had some solid success in the Bill O'Brien era, but then that era ended with him trading away his best player for a second-round pick. So D tier there. The Colts, another team that obviously, had success early on in the Super Bowl era and then has had success late. I think I'm going to put them in A tier. Again, past few years maybe have left a sour taste in people's mouth, but the Peyton Manning era and then also paired with historic success, I will put them there. That feels right for me. Next up, we have the LA Rams, which I'm going to discount the Rams in general, so including St. Louis as well. Multiple Super Bowls, that's definitely promising. They've been to a couple more, so I feel good about them. I feel like they're better than... my question is, are they A tier or B tier? Because to me, I feel like they're not... Are they quite on the... I think they're A tier. Again, multiple Super Bowls. They have had consistent success. The Buccaneers are currently the only team in the B tier, and it kind of makes sense because they are so wonky. The Chargers, I think, are another... To me, this is a C tier franchise. They haven't been... incredible necessarily throughout the course of their franchise, but they have had some good years. I think the Phillip Rivers era elevates them above D tier, but they're not. They're maybe a C minus tier. The Raiders are here again. The historic success. I believe they have 3 Super Bowl wins, if I remember correctly, going off memory here. So sometimes I'm not going to be perfect, but quite frankly, recently they've been such a mess that I think. To me, I think you could put them in B tier with Tampa Bay. They kind of feel similar, where they've had their great history, or, great moments, I should say, throughout the franchise. The franchise as a whole hasn't been overly great, especially the Raiders the past, 20 years or so, but you still have that great history. So they're B. You could argue me into A for the Raiders. Right now, I'm going B. Washington, again, back in the Redskins days, had plenty of success. This might be another B-tier team, I think. A team that's had success, but, recently, it's almost less about the winning and more about the around the team stuff. I think they've had enough issues throughout the 21st century that I can't quite put them into A tier, but B tier feels right. Kansas City Chiefs are another interesting one. We might have a run of B-tier teams because that almost feels right for them as well. They had some rough years, in between Super Bowls. They obviously went 50 years in between Super Bowls. With Patrick Mahomes now, they have 3 Super Bowls and will certainly in another 10 years or so be an A or S tier because of that. But as of right now, I think B tier feels appropriate. We then have the New Orleans Saints, who have a Super Bowl, but just the one Super Bowl. And while they could have gotten closer if, some calls went their way, I don't know how much I can, talk about the calls and that stuff. It's weird. I'm in between B and C tier for this one. But I don't know. I feel like with the Jets and with the Bears, that feels right, kind of where they are. I've kind of not been the beacon of success you might hope, but they have the Super Bowl ring, so they're certainly above D tier. But they're C tier, but they're closer to B than they are to D. We don't have the Giants. Giants 4 Super Bowl wins. That definitely has to put you on a pretty high category. I think I'm going to put them in A tier. Again, not quite the S tier because I don't know if they've ever really had like a dynasty the way the Cowboys and the 49ers have, but they've won 4 Super Bowls and they've had some absolutely legendary players. Again, a bit of a, in recent memory, not quite been as dominant, but A feels good for me. We then have the Eagles, who are another team that I think, they never really, I'm sure there's been times when they've had their valleys, as has every team, but I don't know if they've ever been a mess the way teams like the Raiders and the Buccaneers have, at least certainly not in my lifetime. They've been consistently competitive. Only the one Super Bowl is hard to put them too high on this list. So my question is, are they A tier or are they B tier? I think I'm going to go B tier in terms of historic success just because of only the one Super Bowl, although they have, came very close to winning some other ones. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, this is an obvious one. They are S tier. They have, 6 Super Bowls, more Super Bowls than anyone else. How could you argue with them not, their S tier feels obvious to me. The Broncos, man, that's a tough one. The Broncos have several Super Bowl wins. They have a few Super Bowl wins. Also, a ton of Super Bowl losses and some bad Super Bowl losses. Seems like they, get crushed in the Super Bowl just as often as they win the Super Bowl. But hey, you're still getting to the Super Bowl. And with the amount of Super Bowl appearances they have and a few wins on top of it, you could argue, you could put them in A tier or S tier for me. I don't know. I think I'm saving the S tier for the ones that have had the really dominant dynasties. So for that reason, they're A tier. But again, closer to S tier than they are to B tier. Packers are another one that are interesting to me. Packers, you could argue they're S tier. I mean, again, they have 4 Super Bowls, 2 with Starr, and then 1 with Favre and 1 with Rodgers. They've been consistent throughout. They don't have that, one true dynasty that I just said I'm kind of going for. But you know what? They've been so consistently good for so long. They've won so many Super Bowls. They're S tier for me. They are. The Panthers, no Super Bowls, have gone to 2. They lost to Peyton Manning and Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Obviously Manning in his last year, and then Brady, that was his, I believe that was his second Super Bowl win, was against them. So they've had success for sure. They're not D, but I don't know. I don't know if you can be a B tier without a single Super Bowl win. So C tier feels, I guess you can. I have an A team without a Super Bowl win, but the Vikings are a weird exception. C tier feels right for the Panthers. The Cardinals, I think the Cardinals have to be D tier. I mean, they've struggled so much. Again, they were so close to winning that Super Bowl. That's why I'm kind of a little bit tough of they could be C tier. They nearly beat the Steelers. They had Larry Fitzgerald so close. Gotta be D tier though. The Bills are another one that's tough. I mean, the Bills had essentially a dynasty that never resulted in a championship. They, obviously went to 4 straight Super Bowls, lost all 4 of them. So they got to be above C tier for me at least. The question for me is, are they A tier or are they B tier? They're not S tier. They haven't won a Super Bowl. Can't be S tier without a Super Bowl. But could you be, A tier? Again, I had the Vikings there. The Vikings, similar resume, 4 Super Bowl appearances, no wins. The Vikings have a much better win percentage. The Bills had some tough years as well. To me, B tier feels right for the Bills. But again, in the Josh Allen era, who knows? Maybe if they win a Super Bowl, that would bump them up to A tier easily, I think. The Seahawks, another interesting team where they do have a Super Bowl. Feels like they have more. It feels like, oh yeah, they only have 1 Super Bowl because obviously they went to 1 with Hasselbeck. They went to 2 with Russell Wilson and the Legion of Boom. And, if it wasn't for Malcolm Butler, probably would have won back to back. But just the one, they haven't been a beacon of success throughout their entire career, throughout their entirety as well. I think that's reasonable to say, but they have the kind of the dominant years, some good success. So I'm gonna put them in B tier because of their highs, even if they've had some lows as well. Also, the New England Patriots, last team in S tier. So S tier and D tier each get 5 teams. Kind of very well balanced. These tiers ended up being where there's the 8 or 7 teams in A tier, 7 teams in B tier, 8 teams in C tier, and then 5 in both S and D tiers. Interestingly enough, obviously Patriots, again, I think I said the Steelers had the most. Patriots also have 6. Those 2 are tied. Of course, Brady won 6 there. You could argue that the Patriots, because of how bad they were in the pre-Brady era, don't deserve to be in S tier, but I don't know. It feels kind of similar to the Cowboys' argument of we can't ignore one of the greatest dynasties of all time. To me, I feel this is a good list. The S tier ones feel like they're the S tier. I feel like there is a difference between those 5 and the other ones. You could argue the Packers out of them, I think. But to me, those feel like the right 5. I think this is a good tier list. I think this was ended up being a fun video for me to make. Hopefully it was fun for you to watch. What do you disagree with me on? Who was I too high on? Who was I too low on? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from ya. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.